Katsuki was young when his name became paired with praise. Before his first decade, he'd successfully hunted a wild boar in its prime, proving he was above every other in his age group. He moved up training groups again and again, and soon every tribe member knew his name. Every visitor passing through would hear of the brilliant Bakugou Katsuki, on his way to becoming the youngest warrior the tribe had ever seen. And while Katsuki ate up the praise like his favorite meals, soon having every person in the tribe treat you with familiarity became a hindrance, especially the older members. They cherished Katsuki, favored him with sweet treats from the market, stories and advice, handled him like a blessed grandson. The problem with that was, it left Katsuki with at least 20 grandparents, all inclined to take advantage of his youthful body and strong back to run errands for them. Usually, he avoided the elderly at all costs, choosing a route around the center of the tribe. However, on this particular day, he was in a hurry, and Mrs. Hayashi was the lucky one to snag him. "Oh, Bakugou-kun, could you help me with this?" she called, loud and clear for any surrounding people to hear. He would not be able to escape without being considered rude, something his mother would hear about faster than he could blink. Katsuki gritted his teeth and turned around. Hayashi was a regular requester of his supposed services, always catching him when he so clearly did not want to be caught. He was starting to think the old woman did it on purpose. Begrudgingly, he stomped over to her, swearing lightly under his breath, when the glinting items at her feet demanded his attention. "Bear traps?" Katsuki asked, puzzled. It was well into autumn. The salmon that stormed at this time of year was already diminishing, and the bear numbers dropped with them. There would be no reason for more traps, a waste of precious metal. My husband was going to take them to the forest, but I think he might be delayed in town. Those foreigners give him so much trouble. "I would do it, but you know these old hips," she replied, smiling mischievously. Katsuki eyed the traps critically and commented, "These are bigger than normal." Hayashi winked at him. "Don't tell old Sana, dear, but—" She glanced around, checking for any inquisitive ears. She leaned forward and said softly, "There might be a bounty on that beast Midoriya-kun brought in." Katsuki's heart thumped painfully, a small lapse of panic, but as calmly and nonchalantly as he could, he asked, "A bounty for that lump of fur? From who?" "Ain't nothing special about that thing." Hayashi shrugged. "Some outsider, a foreigner. He offered 1,000 gold pieces for it, alive." Katsuki raised an eyebrow. "That's a lot of coin to be flashing around here, and also very far-fetched." "Oh well, even if it's just a hoax, it's still a mighty beast. All that fur and meat will be worth something. And if one of our traps catch it, I'll give you a few pieces for your trouble, Bakugou-kun." "Better be more than a few, since I'm doing all the work," Katsuki said, his mind whirling with new information. The old woman laughed. "I'll see what my dear husband thinks." Katsuki hefted the bear traps, 3 large and heavy metal contraptions that bit into his shoulder uncomfortably. He noticeably entered the forest, treaded deep until he came to the wolf's den. Nostalgia knocked at its confines, but Katsuki would not let the feeling escape from the tightly sealed box he put it in. He dumped the traps into the hole, ensuring that it was concealed. Then he swung his foot, kicking the thick and hard bark of the tree, swearing loudly as the pain radiated through him. Fucking hell! He leaned on the thick tree trunk, taking moments, minutes, an hour, just trying to wrap his head around what he was going to do about this whole fuck-up. And when he finally found some semblance of calm, he rose, took a final deep breath, and walked back to the tribe. Sprinting through the forest had lost some of its thrill without Izuku at your back. Part of the excitement had been that he enjoyed the elating feeling of moving at high speeds. But even though you'd begged him to come with, to experience that which he loved so much, Izuku prioritized caution, as he had been for a while now. He never dared to leave our place on his visits, and only stayed for a few minutes, an hour if you were lucky. The visits had gradually become more frequent, moving up from a week in and week out to once every 3 days or so. What had been an everyday normal had become a sporadic guessing game. Would this be the day Izuku comes home? How long will he be gone? When will it end? In his absence, you realized just how dependent you were on his presence. You suppose spending most of your life with one person would do that to you. Without him, you were forced to hunt alone, prepare the meat alone, eat alone, sleep alone, be alone. Each day Izuku would stay away, you felt your heart shrivel, and the short jump starts his presence provided never felt like enough. Lamenting in your depressing thoughts, you did not immediately hear the shouting. "Oi! Stop! Mutt, stop, stop!" Your eyes just catch Katsuki waving his hands wildly before you cry out as pain shoots up your hind leg. You tumble forward, a chain clinks and you're halted. You right yourself on your 3 free limbs and turn to find your 4th leg in the clutches of a bear trap. You tug at it, the pain intensifying. You're whining, panicking, trying to figure out what to do. You couldn't transform back because that thing might just snap your leg off. Could you bite through the chain? Could you? "Oi, stop moving. It will just dig deeper. Just wait." You whimper at the sight of Katsuki. He was not looking at you, but at your leg. "I'm going to pull it apart. It's going to hurt." Then, quick as lightning, spikes are torn out of your leg. You drag your leg out, getting as far from the cursed trap as you managed and shifted. Tears fell from your eyes as you curl around your foot. The wound shrunk proportionally, but hurt no less. "Hey, let me see." Katsuki crouched down before you as you sniffled quietly. His fingers prodded your ankle gently, examining it. "How did you know the trap was there?" you hiccup. "I was going to come back for it," he says shortly. "It was yours?" "No, just sit still." He leans back to his satchel, a habit he'd formed since he was young. The satchel held emergency supplies. He pulled out some bandages and ointment. Katsuki was careful as he wiped the blood running in rivulets and applied the ointment. It threw you back to the time they'd first met. Only Katsuki was being so careful now, unlike then when the little brat had rough-handled your foot with no remorse. You'd have thought he'd be the same now, maybe even worse considering how he kept saying he didn't care about you and Izuku. But he wasn't. He was meticulous and mindful, and carried a sure confidence that eased you, even as your foot throbbed. You missed him. "So you do care?" you say before you can stop yourself. Katsuki's eyes flicked up in warning. You meet them briefly before they fall back to your ankle. You glance at the trap, disliking the sight of it and what it told you. "That's not a bear trap," you say, simply with resignation. "It's not," Katsuki replies gruffly. You suppose you should be grateful for the years of peace you had, without the tribe knowing about you. Years that Izuku and, for a short while, Katsuki had spent keeping you from them. The grace period was up. As though you weren't being careful before, now you'd have to be more. "It's not yours, but you are coming back for it?" you say, as Katsuki tightens the bandages. He doesn't reply. "You're collecting them?" you ask, a little unsurely. Katsuki finishes and jumped to his feet. He walked to the trap, grumbling almost inaudibly. "They interfere with my hunts." "You don't hunt here. You know this is where I am. You've never hunted here." Katsuki hefted the trap and growled. "Why don't you mind your business, mutt?" You rise to your feet, not without difficulty, or a glance from red eyes. "I don't get you. You talk like Izuku and I are nothing to you, but then you do stuff like this?" you say, exasperated. I just fucking said it was for my own benefit. What about that don't you understand? Is the amount of raw meat you're eating affecting your brain? You narrow your eyes. That's low. You know Izuku and I suck at cooking. Katsuki rolled his eyes. You expect him to walk away, but he burns a hole into the ground with his glare and doesn't move. You wait, watching him work through the words he wanted to say. You should leave, he said abruptly. Your eyebrows crinkle, a little surprised. What? He looks at you, his eyes blazing. Leave this area, go far away. This place is no longer safe. Not that it ever really was. You should have left a long time ago. I'm not leaving, you say incredulously. Izuku is here. Fuck Izuku. What about you? He shouts. Irritation flares in you. You'd love that, wouldn't you? You want me to abandon Izuku like you did? Think about yourself for once, not just your attachment. If you got caught in the trap while I wasn't here, what do you think would have happened? I would have figured it out, you yell back. You would have been taken by them, killed, skinned, and sold. Fucking grow some common sense, Mutt. You weren't sure whether it was the trick of the lighting in the forest, or your imagination, but Katsuki's eyes were glossy. You stare at him for a moment, attempting to pilfer through the aggression in harsh words. Katsuki wasn't trying to be mean. He was worried. And that made your throat burn. Frustration and puzzlement all wound up in your head. I'm not leaving, you say again, quietly. Izuku is not just my attachment, Katsuki. When you left us, we only had each other to latch onto. Izuku has no one but me, and I have no one but Izuku. I am not leaving. Katsuki's anger erupted. He dropped the bear trap on the ground. It clattered loudly in the quiet forest. He stormed over to you, a raging bull in the way he reared. His face inches from yours where you could see the bright red flames in his eyes. Fine then, he spat. Die on your own fucking terms, but don't cry and say I didn't warn you. I won't try to save you from your own idiocy again. Katsuki turned on his heels and disappeared into the forest, leaving you again like he had years ago. Katsuki dumped the traps he'd already collected in the wolf's den and stomped his way back to the tribe, fuming. Of fucking course you'd be too stupid to listen to him, too full of yourself, too high and mighty to get off your tall pedestal, too... Katsuki kicked a rock when he ran out of insults. The pain opened a floodgate for all the fight to drain out of him in one swift wave. He leaned against the trunk of the tree, wondering if he'd gone too far this time, or not far enough. What was worse was how similar this interaction felt to the day he left. The day he'd ran home crying like a fucking baby from a decision he made. A decision he never wanted to make in the first place. Katsuki slid down the tree trunk, taking solace in the rare moment of his heart not pumping out anger. He thought about where to go from here. Collecting the traps didn't solve the problem. There would be more. He'd ask you to leave, and you wouldn't even though your life depended on it. So what does Katsuki do? He hadn't felt this lost in years. Huffing, he finally rose from the ground. He'd have to figure it out. He was about to make his way to the tribe when a moving bush caught his eye, a small clump of leaves that floated above a little way away. Katsuki squinted and realized it wasn't a bush at all, but Izuku, likely heading to you. Katsuki's heart thumped painfully. A horrid realization washed over him. He knew what he needed to do. He clenched his hands into fists and set off a small explosion, something to jar him into the mindset he needed to be in. He shouted for Izuku. Oi, Deku! Izuku's head whipped around frantically, likely thinking he'd been caught. Katsuki waited for him to see, caught his mouth move to form his name. Katsuki didn't move as he made his way over. A look of concern, confusion, and agitation mixed on his face. "Ka-chan, what's wrong?" he asked nervously. "You're going to see them," Katsuki stated. Izuku looked around him skitishly. "Yes, but keep your voice—" "Do you know about the traps?" Katsuki demanded. "Traps?" Izuku inquired worriedly. "The traps that the tribe is setting for your stupid pet." "Ka-chan, don't call them a—" "Someone is offering 1,000 gold." Izuku stalled. He began muttering and nodding before saying, "We'll be more careful. Thank you for telling me this, Be more careful," Katsuki mocked. He stepped forward, shoving Izuku back. "I found them in a trap today." Izuku's eyes widened. "What? Are they okay? I need to—" Izuku was halfway to turning, but Katsuki clamped onto his shoulder and held tightly. He let his hand warm to fully grab Izuku's attention. Izuku glanced at his arm and back to Katsuki's molten gaze, frightful. "You need to tell them to leave." "Leave?" Izuku repeated, his eyebrows scrunching. "Deku, use your brain for once in your life," Katsuki began, lowly, bordering threatening. "They're staying because of you, risking their life because of you. We don't know this person offering gold for them, but what do you think they'll do to them? They want the beast alive. Maybe to poke and prod at, whoop and watch bleed, to make a warmonger. Stop!" Izuku ripped away, tears streaming down his face. "We'll be more careful. That won't happen." "Stop being fucking selfish," Katsuki screamed. "You should have set them free years ago, but you made them grow attached to you, chained them to you with your tears and your sad story of not being wanted by your tribe, a burden to your mother. Poor fucking Deku, bullied and bruised. Please, puppy, come lick my wounds." Izuku pushed away, frantic. "No, I didn't. I wasn't. Or maybe you just don't want to let them go because you're in love with them." This might have been the first time Izuku looked truly afraid. From all the times he'd shoved him, taunted him, burnt his belongings, it was just that simple sentence that widened his eye like prey before a predator. But Katsuki couldn't react to it. He needed to push. "I'm not as much as an idiot as that fucking mutt." Katsuki walked up to Izuku, close enough to see the watering emeralds and trembling lip. "Your love is what's going to kill them, Deku." For the second time that day, Katsuki left someone he loved with a mess of emotions they'd have to deal with, alone. Izuku's feet dragged as he walked back to our place, weighed down by Katsuki's harsh but true words. To Izuku, everything he'd done until now had been for you. But was that just an excuse to keep you near? Had he been subconsciously doing everything to keep you trapped and latched onto him? Had he been manipulating you and not even aware of it? Tears burned in his throat. He might not have realized he was doing it, but he had, hadn't he? Come to you crying every time the tribe's ridicule became too much. Forced you to take care of him in his fragile state out of pity. Katsuki was right. He was trapping you here, making you risk your life just so what? Izuku could have a friend? Izuku stared at the entrance, his heart so unwilling to cross the threshold and do what he was about to. He knew you cared about him, loved him as family, but now as his brain mulled over everything Katsuki had said, he realized you hadn't had that much of a choice in the matter. There was no one else. If he set you free, dissolved your connection to him, let you into the world to find a safer place, maybe there could be others that could give you a choice to love. He entered our place, bombarded with your bright smile. "Izu!" You rushed over to him, almost tackling him in a hug. Your hugs nowadays were full of pressure. a hole to show how much you'd missed him. Izuku hugged back like he always did, but this time, he squeezed hard for how much he was going to miss you. You pulled away, radiating happiness for only a second before you properly saw his face. "What's wrong?" you asked anxiously. Izuku looked down, finding Katsuki's precise bindings around your ankle. The sight solidified something in Izuku. His resolve. "What happened to your leg?" he asked quietly. Your smile was tight, stretched too thin. "I tripped. You know how clumsy I can be, especially without you here." Izuku watched you as you spoke, your mesmerizing eyes, the change in octaves as you lied. "I saw the traps." Your lips part in mild surprise at being caught, before you smiled again, a little nervous now. "Okay, you got me. I got caught in one. But I'm alright. See, taken care of." "What if next time it's not that easy?" Izuku asked softly. "What if next time you don't get out? What if someone saw you out there? Someone who captured you?" "I would have found a way out." "Why are you talking like this?" you demand, agitated. "I think you need to leave," Izuku blurted out before you could turn back. You stalled, staring with wide eyes and letting the horrid moment drag until you finally shook your head. "I'm not leaving." "How can you ask me that? Izuku, you're the only person. We only have each other. I'm not leaving you." And that confirmed everything. You were only staying because of him. He would have to leave first. "After today, I'm not coming back. So there's no use in you staying here any longer." Izuku reached up, gliding his fingers along the strands of your hair. "Go somewhere safe." You smacked his hand away. Your eyes turned and your teeth sharpened. "I'm not leaving," you growled. Izuku remained calm despite the aggression. "Don't even try coming back to the tribe for me. You'll endanger all of us. Do you understand, puppy?" You promised me you'd always come back," you shout desperately. Izuku's heart squeezes painfully. You could feel the tears threatening, but he could not let them fall. "Not now. I have to break that promise. There's a whole world waiting for you out there. Find it for me, yeah?" Izuku forces himself to turn away from you, but you grab onto his arm, your peeking claws digging through the material. "I won't leave. Even if you go, Izuku, I will be here waiting for you." "I love you," was what he wanted to say, but he was afraid that would add a lock to the cage you already had to break out of. The psychological prison where each bar was Izuku's needs that you had took upon yourself to fulfill. Instead, he said numbly, "You're hurting me." You release him immediately, sparkling tears falling from your eyes as you begged him not to go. Izuku turned away, knowing that your claws did nothing but prick him. He was the one that had hurt you.